What if a single day could spark a transformation that reshapes your entire life? Imagine unlocking the power to become the person you've always wanted to be, not through grand promises, but through small, deliberate actions rooted in timeless wisdom. In this video from ZenLight 8, we dive into the Stoic principles inspired by Marcus Aurelius that show you how one day, 1 week, can set you on a path to a stronger, truer you. Stick around until the end to discover practical insights you can apply today to build discipline, clarity, and purpose in our fast-paced modern world. Don't miss out. Let's start this journey together. One day to ignite your transformation. What if the life you've always dreamed of isn't years away, buried under endless to-do lists, or waiting for the stars to align? What if it's closer than you think? So close that a single day could become the spark that sets everything in motion. Not a day of grand gestures or fleeting resolutions, but a day of quiet, deliberate choices that align with your deepest values. A day where you decide to stop waiting and start becoming. The Stoics, those ancient architects of resilient living, believed that we don't own tomorrow, but we hold today in our hands. And in that truth lies a power so profound it can reshape who you are, not in some distant future, but right now in the hours you're living. This isn't about chasing perfection or forcing a dramatic overhaul. It's about the courage to act with intention today, to plant a seed that grows into a life of purpose, clarity, and unshakable strength. Picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, not to the usual rush of notifications or the weight of yesterday's regrets, but with a single, sacred promise to yourself. Today matters. Today, you'll live as the person you aspire to be, not perfectly, not without flaws, but with unwavering commitment to your own code. The Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, didn't wait for inspiration to strike. They didn't pause for the world to hand them permission. They acted day by day, because they understood that transformation isn't a lightning bolt. It's a fire kindled by consistent, intentional effort. Marcus wrote in his meditations, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. Not to despair, but to prepare." He was arming himself for the battle of the day, not against others, but against the temptation to stray from his principles. That's the kind of day we're talking about. One where you rise, not because you feel invincible, but because you've decided your word is unbreakable. Let's ground this in something real. Think of someone like Sarah, a single mom in Chicago juggling a demanding job and 2 kids. She'd spent years telling herself she'd get her life together when things slowed down, when the kids were older, when work was less hectic, when she had more energy. But one morning, after another sleepless night, she looked in the mirror and made a choice. She didn't need to wait for a new year or a clean slate. That day, she'd start small but true. She set her alarm 15 minutes earlier to sit quietly with her coffee, not scrolling her phone, but reflecting on what she valued: health, patience, presence. She walked for 10 minutes during her lunch break, not to check a box, but to honor her body. She spoke kindly to her kids that evening, even when exhaustion made her want to snap. That one day wasn't perfect. It was messy, human, real, but it was hers, and it changed everything. Sarah didn't just feel better. She felt stronger. She'd kept a promise to herself, and that promise became the foundation of a new way of living. This is the Stoic secret. One day of honest effort isn't just a fleeting moment. It's a declaration. It's you telling yourself, "I am no longer the person who waits." It's not about rewriting your entire story in 24 hours. It's about writing the first sentence with conviction. Every choice you make that day, whether it's saying no to distraction, moving your body with purpose, or speaking with clarity, becomes a brushstroke on the canvas of who you're becoming. And here's where it gets powerful. That day doesn't exist in isolation. It's not a one-off performance. It's the opening note of a symphony, the first step on a path that grows clearer with every stride. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You don't need to be flawless. You just need to show up fully for one day. And in that showing up, you reclaim something sacred: trust in yourself. Why does this matter so much in today's world? Because we're drowning in noise. Endless notifications, comparisons, and pressures that pull us away from our core. In a culture that celebrates instant results and viral moments, the Stoic approach feels like a rebellion. It's not about going viral, it's about going deep. It's choosing substance over flash, integrity over applause. Look around. How many people are stuck, not because they lack talent, but because they're waiting? Waiting for motivation, waiting for permission, waiting for life to get easier. The Stoics didn't wait, and neither should you. One day of living with purpose, rising early, acting with discipline, reflecting with honesty, cuts through the fog. It reminds you that you're not a passenger in your own life. You're the driver. Let's make it practical. Imagine you're sitting at your kitchen table tonight, mapping out tomorrow. You don't need a 10-step plan or a vision board. Start with one question. What's one thing I can do tomorrow that aligns with who I want to be? Maybe it's waking up 10 minutes earlier to breathe deeply and set an intention. Maybe it's saying no to gossip at work, not to seem good, but to protect your peace. Maybe it's writing one paragraph for that project you've been delaying, not for praise, but because it's a promise to your future self. Whatever it is, make it small enough to be real, but big enough to matter. Then do it. Not because you feel like it, but because you decided. That decision is your power. It's the spark that lights the fire. Here's what's beautiful. That one day doesn't just end when you go to bed. It leaves a mark. You wake up the next morning a little different. Not transformed overnight, but shifted. You've tasted what it feels like to honor your word, to move with purpose, to live as if your choices matter. And that taste, it's addictive, not in a loud, fleeting way, but in a quiet, grounded one. You start to crave it, not the high of motivation, but the steady hum of self-respect. You begin to see that transformation isn't about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you've always been beneath the doubt and delay. It's about stepping into your own strength, one deliberate day at a time. This isn't a fairy tale or a self-help cliche. It's a truth as old as the Stoics, yet as relevant as ever in our chaotic, distracted world. One day of living true to your values can break the cycle of procrastination. It can silence the voice that says, "You're not ready." It can prove, in the smallest but most undeniable way, that you're capable of more than you've let yourself believe. And that proof is the beginning of everything. It's the moment you stop standing at the edge and start walking the path. But a single day, powerful as it is only the start. What happens when you string those days together, when you build on that spark to create something enduring? That's where the real transformation begins. Action over words, acta non verba. The spark of one intentional day, as we've seen, can light a fire within you. It's the moment you stop dreaming and start doing, the instant you choose to honor your values with action rather than promises. But a single day, powerful as it is only the beginning. To carry that flame forward, to let it grow into something that reshapes your life, you need more than a fleeting burst of effort. You need a commitment to the Stoic principle that cuts through the noise of empty resolutions. Acta non verba, actions, not words. This isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a way of being, a call to live with such clarity and conviction that your deeds speak louder than any speech ever could. The Stoics didn't sit around theorizing about a better life. They built it, choice by choice, moment by moment. And in today's world, where words are cheap and distractions are endless, this principle is your compass, guiding you from fleeting inspiration to lasting transformation. Imagine standing at the edge of a river, staring at the far bank where the life you want waits. You could spend forever describing that shore, its beauty, its promise, the way it feels like home. You could write poems about it, post about it, talk about it until your voice gives out. But none of that will get you across. The only way forward is to step into the water, to feel the current push against you, and to keep moving one deliberate step at a time. That's what acta non verba means. It's not about shouting your intentions to the world. It's about proving them to yourself. It's not about waiting for the perfect mood or the ideal moment. It's about acting now with purpose. Because transformation doesn't come from what you say you'll do. It comes from what you do again and again until your actions carve a path to who you're meant to be. Let's make this real. Consider James. a 30-something software engineer in Seattle who felt stuck in a cycle of burnout and procrastination. He'd always been the guy with big plans: learn a new language, get in shape, start that side hustle. But those plans lived in notebooks, not reality. One evening, scrolling through another motivational video, he stumbled across the Stoic idea of acta non verba. It hit him like a wake-up call. He realized he'd been talking about change for years, but his actions didn't match his words. So he decided to try something different. Instead of vowing to become a morning person, he set his alarm for 6 a.m. the next day and went for a 10-minute run. No excuses, no overthinking. Instead of promising to be more productive, he blocked off 1 hour after work to code on his passion project. No distractions allowed. That first day wasn't glamorous. He was tired, his run was slow, and his code was messy. But he did it. And the next day, he did it again. Not because he felt inspired, but because he'd decided his actions would define him, not his intentions. What James discovered is what the Stoics knew centuries ago. Words are easy, but actions are evidence. Every time you act instead of talk, you build a bridge between who you are and who you want to be. You don't need to announce your goals to the world. Social media doesn't need to know you're starting over. The only audience that matters is you. Each action, no matter how small, is a vote for the person you're becoming. It's you saying, "This is who I am." Not the person who dreams, but the person who does. And in a culture obsessed with instant gratification, where likes, retweets, and viral moments drown out quiet effort, the Stoic principle is a rebellion. It's a refusal to let your life be defined by what you say you'll do tomorrow. It's a commitment to live your truth today. Why does this matter so much? Because we're surrounded by noise. People shouting their dreams, their plans, their new year, new me mantras, only to fade when the work gets hard. In a world where everyone's talking, the person who acts stands out. Not because they're louder, but because they're real. Think about the people you admire most. Maybe a parent who showed up every day, rain or shine, or a colleague who delivers without fanfare. Their power isn't in what they promised. It's in what they did, consistently, without needing applause. That's the Stoic way. It's not about hype or temporary spikes of effort. It's about building a life where your actions are your legacy, where your choices reflect your values, and where your presence carries weight because it's backed by proof. This isn't to say words don't matter. They can inspire, they can clarify. But words without action are like seeds that never touch soil. They hold potential, but they don't grow. The Stoics understood this. They didn't just preach virtue, they lived it. Marcus Aurelius didn't journal his thoughts to impress anyone. He wrote to remind himself to act with courage, wisdom, and justice, no matter what the day brought. Seneca didn't lecture about resilience. He practiced it, facing exile and adversity with a steady hand. Their words carry weight today because they were forged in action. And that's your challenge, to make your actions your loudest voice, to let your life speak through what you do, not what you say you'll do. So how do you start? It's simpler than you think, but it's not easy. Pick one thing, one small, meaningful action that aligns with the person you want to be. Maybe it's writing 100 words for that book you've been planning. Maybe it's saying no to a second drink because you value clarity. Maybe it's showing up for a friend, not because you owe them, but because integrity is your code. Do it today, not because it'll change the world, but because it'll change you. And then do it again tomorrow, not because you're chasing a finish line, but because you're building a foundation. Each action is a brick, each choice a step, each moment a chance to prove you're not just talk. That's how you move from dreaming to becoming, from words to reality. But action alone, powerful as it is, needs something to sustain it. It's not enough to act once or twice and hope the momentum carries you. That's where the Stoics' greatest weapon comes in. A force that turns fleeting effort into enduring change. It's the quiet, unshakable power of discipline. The engine that drives action forward when inspiration fades. The power of discipline, freedom through structure. If action is the spark that starts your journey, discipline is the furnace that keeps it burning. It's the steady hand that guides you when the path gets rough. The inner compass that points true when distractions call. To the Stoics, discipline wasn't a punishment or a restriction. It was the very foundation of freedom. It was the tool that let them act, not react. To choose, not be chosen. To live by principle, not by whim. In a world that pulls us in 1,000 directions, where emotions sway, temptations beckon, and chaos reigns, discipline is your anchor. It's what lets you move forward, not because you feel like it, but because you've decided who you are. And that decision, forged in the fires of consistent effort, is what transforms action into a way of life. Let's paint a picture. Imagine a sailor navigating a stormy sea. The waves crash, the winds howl, and the horizon disappears in the fog. Without a compass, she's at the mercy of the storm, tossed wherever the current takes her. But with a compass, she has a guide. She doesn't control the waves, but she controls her course. Discipline is that compass. It doesn't calm the storm, it doesn't need to. It gives you the power to steer through it. It's what lets you wake up on a gray, exhausting morning and still choose to act. It's what keeps you writing, running, or showing up when the initial excitement fades. It's what turns a single day of effort into a lifetime of purpose. Take Maria, a teacher in Atlanta who always felt like she was falling short. She loved her students, but the grind of grading, planning, and managing a classroom left her drained. She'd start each week with big goals: eat healthier, exercise, read more. But by Wednesday, she'd be back to takeout and Netflix, promising herself next week would be different. Then she read about Stoic discipline, how it wasn't about perfection but about showing up no matter what. She decided to try it, starting small. Every morning, she'd spend 5 minutes journaling her intentions. Not grand plans, but simple commitments. Eat 1 vegetable, walk for 15 minutes, grade 1 stack of papers. Some days she didn't feel like it. Some days she was tired or stressed. But she did it anyway, not for a reward, but because she'd promised herself. Over time, those 5 minutes became her anchor. They didn't just change her habits. They changed how she saw herself. She wasn't failing anymore. She was building. And that shift, born of discipline, gave her a freedom she'd never known. This is what makes discipline so powerful. It's not about forcing yourself to be something you're not. It's about freeing yourself to be who you are. The Stoics saw it as the bridge between principle and practice. You can believe in honesty, courage, or wisdom, but without discipline, those are just ideas. Discipline is what makes them real. It's what lets you say no to gossip, not because it's wrong, but because you value peace. It's what lets you keep working on a project, not for praise, but because excellence is your standard. It's what lets you face a tough day, not with panic, but with poise, because you've trained yourself to act, not react. In our modern world, discipline feels countercultural. We're bombarded with messages to follow your feelings, to chase what's easy or instant. Scroll through any app, and you'll see promises of quick fixes. Lose weight in a week, get rich overnight, find happiness in 1 click. But quick fixes don't last. They're sparks, not furnaces. Discipline, on the other hand, is built for the long haul. It's not sexy or loud, but it's steady. It's what lets you keep going when the world tells you to quit. Think of someone like Kobe Bryant, whose legendary work ethic wasn't about talent alone. It was about showing up day after day to hone his craft. He didn't wait to feel motivated. He acted relentlessly because discipline was his freedom. It gave him the power to shape his destiny, not just hope for it. So, how do you cultivate discipline? It starts with clarity. Know what matters to you, not what the world says should matter, but what you value. Maybe it's being present for your family, creating something meaningful, or simply living with integrity. Then make it small. Discipline isn't about giant leaps. It's about consistent steps. If you value health, start with 1 push-up a day. If you value creativity, write 1 sentence. The size doesn't matter, the commitment does. Do it not because it's impressive, but because it's yours. And when you falter, because you will, don't dwell on the stumble. Get up. Discipline isn't perfection. It's persistence. It's the courage to return to your path, not with shame, but with strength. Here's what's beautiful. Discipline doesn't just build habits. It builds you. Each time you choose action over excuses, you strengthen your core. You become someone who doesn't need to negotiate with themselves, who doesn't need a cheerleader to keep going. You become free not from struggle, but from being ruled by it. You start to trust yourself not because you're flawless, but because you're reliable. And that trust is the soil where everything grows. It's what lets you face uncertainty with calm, adversity with courage, and temptation with clarity. It's what makes you the kind of person who doesn't just survive life's storms but sails through them, steady and sure. But discipline's true power shines when you string those actions together, when you turn single days into something greater. What happens when you take that commitment and let it grow, day by day, into a rhythm that reshapes who you are? That's where the Stoic journey takes us next, into the momentum of a week, a month, a life defined not by fleeting moments, but by relentless, sacred repetition. Building momentum through repetition. You've ignited the spark with one intentional day, fueled it with actions that speak louder than words, and anchored it with the quiet power of discipline. But a spark, no matter how bright, needs tending to become a blaze. It needs repetition, the steady, unrelenting rhythm of showing up, day after day, until what was once effort becomes instinct. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. Transformation isn't a single leap, but a series of steps, each one building on the last. One disciplined day can shift your perspective, but it's the days that follow, the ones you string together with purpose, that carve a new path. This isn't about chasing fleeting bursts of motivation. It's about forging momentum through persistence. It's about realizing that a week, a month, a life of progress begins with the courage to keep going, one deliberate choice at a time. Think of momentum like a river carving through stone. At first, it's just a trickle barely noticeable against the vastness of the rock. But over time, with every drop that flows, it deepens, widens, becomes unstoppable. That's what repetition does for you. It's not about intensity. It's not about running a marathon on day one or rewriting your entire life in a week. It's about consistency, about choosing to act, even when the thrill of starting fades. The Stoics didn't believe in waiting for inspiration to strike again. They believed in moving forward, always forward, because each step reinforces the one before it. A single day of discipline plants the seed, but a week of showing up waters it. A month of persistence lets it take root, reshaping not just what you do, but who you are. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Emma, a graphic designer in Denver who always felt like she was almost there, but never quite arrived. She had talent, ideas, a vision for a creative career, but her days slipped away in distractions. Endless emails, social media, Netflix binges. She'd start projects with excitement, only to abandon them when doubt crept in. Then, inspired by a podcast on Stoicism, she decided to try something new, 1 week of focused effort. Each morning, she'd spend 30 minutes sketching before checking her phone. No excuses. Each evening, she'd review one piece of her work, not to judge it, but to learn. The first day felt awkward, the second tiring, but by day 3, something shifted. She wasn't just sketching, she was creating. By the end of the week, she'd finished a small portfolio piece, not perfect, but real. More than that, she felt different. Steadier, clearer, like she was finally moving towards something. That week wasn't a finish line. It was a foundation. Emma kept going, not because she was motivated, but because she'd tasted progress, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. This is the Stoic truth about momentum. It's not born from emotion, but from action repeated relentlessly. Motivation is like a summer breeze, pleasant when it's there, gone when it's not. It's nice to have, but it's not reliable. Momentum, on the other hand, is something you build. It's the weight of every choice you make, stacking up until it carries you forward, even on days when you'd rather stay still. In today's world, where we're bombarded with quick fixes and instant results, this idea feels radical. We're told to hack our way to success, to find the one trick that changes everything overnight. But hacks don't last. They're sparks, not rivers. The Stoics knew that real change comes from what you do when no one's watching, when the excitement fades, when the work feels ordinary. That's when you're sculpting your future, not with grand gestures, but with quiet, sacred repetition. Why does repetition matter so much? Because it rewires you. Each time you choose to act, whether it's waking up early, writing one sentence, or taking a walk, you're not just checking a box. You're teaching yourself who you are. You're telling your mind, your body, your soul, this is what we do. You're building a rhythm that drowns out the noise of doubt and distraction. Think of someone like J.K. Rowling, who wrote Harry Potter not in a burst of genius, but in stolen moments. Early mornings, late nights, scribbling in cafes while her daughter slept. It wasn't one magical day that made her a legend. It was years of showing up, writing one word at a time, even when rejection letters piled up. That's momentum. That's repetition. That's the Stoic way. How do you build it? Start small, but start true. Pick one action that aligns with your vision, something so simple it's almost embarrassing. If you want to be healthier, drink a glass of water first thing in the morning. If you want to be kinder, say one genuine thank you each day. Do it today, then do it tomorrow. Don't aim for perfection, aim for presence. When you miss a day, don't spiral into guilt. Just return to the path. The Stoics didn't obsess over flawless streaks. They cared about progress, about motion. Each repetition is a stone in your foundation, and with every stone, you grow stronger. By the end of a week, you'll feel it. A quiet shift, not loud, but real. By the end of a month, it's more than a habit. It's part of you. Your actions start to shape your identity, not because you're forcing it, but because you're living it. This is where the magic happens. Repetition doesn't just build habits, it builds belief. You start to trust yourself, not because you've reached some distant goal, but because you've proven you'll show up. You've walked through resistance, pushed past fatigue, and chosen action over excuses. That trust becomes your fuel, carrying you further than any burst of motivation ever could. You're no longer the person who waits for the right time. You're the person who creates it, day by day, until the life you once dreamed of isn't a dream, it's your reality. But momentum alone, powerful as it is, needs a compass to guide it. It needs something deeper to keep it true, living true to your values. As you build momentum, stringing days into weeks and weeks into months, you begin to notice something profound. Your actions are no longer just tasks. They're expressions of who you are. Each choice, no matter how small, becomes a mirror reflecting your values back to you. The Stoics taught that true strength lies not in what you achieve, but in how you live moment by moment, with integrity, clarity, and purpose. Living true to your values isn't about grand declarations or chasing applause. It's about the quiet power of small acts. Waking up on time, eating with intention, speaking truth, that align your life with what matters most. These acts don't just build habits. They build you. They forge self-confidence, self-respect, and a sense of alignment that no external validation can match. Picture a craftsman shaping a piece of wood. Every cut, every stroke is deliberate, guided by a vision of what the wood can become. He doesn't rush or force it. He respects the grain, works with it, lets each movement bring him closer to the final form. That's what it means to live true to your values. Every action is a stroke, every choice a cut, shaping the raw material of your life into something meaningful. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. It's waking up early not to impress anyone, but because you value your time. It's choosing a salad over a burger not for a diet, but because you honor your body. It's speaking honestly even when it's hard, because truth is your standard. These aren't chores, they're rituals. They're how you tell the world and yourself who you are. Let's bring this to life. Consider David, a nurse in Austin who always felt like he was living on autopilot. Long shifts, endless demands, and a nagging sense that he wasn't enough left him drained. He'd go through the motions, work, eat, sleep, repeat, but something was missing. Then, during a quiet moment, he reflected on what he truly valued: compassion, reliability, health. He decided to make those values real, starting small. Each morning, he'd set an intention to be fully present for one patient. Not just checking vitals, but listening, connecting. He stopped grabbing fast food on breaks, instead packing a simple meal to fuel his body. At home, he'd spend 5 minutes stretching, not for a workout, but to care for himself. These weren't big changes, but they were true. Over time, David noticed a shift. He wasn't just a better nurse, he was a better person. His patients felt his warmth. His colleagues trusted his steadiness, and he carried himself with a quiet pride. He wasn't chasing goals, he was living his values, and that changed everything. This is the Stoic secret. Your values aren't abstract ideas. They're choices you make every day. They're in the way you move, speak, listen. They're in the pause before you react, the decision to act with kindness, the refusal to cut corners. In a world that pulls us toward distraction, where we're tempted to scroll, compare, or numb ourselves, these small acts are revolutionary. They're your rebellion against chaos, your stake in the ground. They say, "This is what I stand for." And each time you live that truth, you build something unbreakable. Self-respect. Not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet kind that comes from knowing you've kept your word to yourself. Why does this resonate so deeply? Because we're starving for authenticity. In a culture of filters and facades, where people curate their lives for likes, living true to your values is rare. It's magnetic. Think of someone like Fred Rogers, whose gentle presence touched millions. He didn't shout his values, he lived them. Every kind word, every moment of attention, was a choice to embody compassion and respect. That's why people trusted him, not because he was flashy, but because he was real. You don't need to be famous to have that impact. You just need to be true. When you wake up on time, you're saying your time matters. When you eat with intention, you're saying your health matters. When you speak truth, you're saying your integrity matters. And those choices, they ripple. They shape how you see yourself, how others see you, and how the world feels in your presence. How do you live this way? Start by knowing your values, not what you're supposed to value, but what lights you up. Maybe it's courage, creativity, or connection. Write them down, not to post online, but to carry in your heart. Then, find one way to honor them today. If you value learning, read one page. If you value honesty, admit a small mistake. Make it so small it's undeniable, but so true it's powerful. Do it again tomorrow. When you falter, and you will, don't judge yourself. Just return. The Stoics didn't chase perfection. They chased alignment. Each act is a step back to your core, a reminder that you're not drifting, you're building. Here's what's beautiful. These small acts don't just stack, they multiply. They create a feedback loop of confidence and trust. Each time you live your values, you prove you're capable. You stand a little taller, not with arrogance, but with peace. You start to believe not because someone told you to, but because you've shown yourself you can. This isn't about external rewards, it's about internal clarity. It's about waking up each day knowing you're not just going through the motions. You're crafting a life that's yours, one choice at a time. And that clarity is the foundation of everything to come. But this journey doesn't end with habits or values. It's leading you somewhere deeper, to a confidence forged in promises kept, to a strength that doesn't waver when life gets hard. What happens when you take these daily acts and let them shape not just what you do, but how you carry yourself through the world? That's where we're headed next. The importance of habits, enduring excellence. You've kindled a spark with one intentional day, given it voice through actions that outweigh words, steadied it with the iron of discipline, built momentum through relentless repetition, and guided it with values that shine like a lighthouse in the fog. But to ensure this transformation isn't a fleeting flare, to make it a flame that burns steady and true through life's inevitable storms, you need habits. Not the kind that feel like burdens or fade with the New Year's shine, but the kind that weave themselves into your very being, as instinctive as a heartbeat. The Stoics knew that habits are more than checklists. They're the scaffolding of your soul. While goals tempt you with their distant glow, habits are the earth you walk on, firm, unyielding, carrying you forward no matter what the day brings. They're what let you live with excellence, not as a rare feat, but as your natural state, untouched by chaos or doubt. Imagine a sailor crossing an endless ocean. The stars above might guide her, but it's the rhythm of her oars, the steady pull, day after day, that moves her toward shore. That's what habits are. The quiet, persistent strokes that propel you, even when the skies are dark. Goals, for all their allure, can waver. You might dream of running a marathon, launching a business, or mastering a craft, but goals are mile markers, not the road itself. Miss a deadline, hit a wall, and they can feel like mirages, slipping further with every step. Habits, though, don't vanish. They're not tied to outcomes, they're tied to you. They're the morning stretch, the honest word, the single sentence written before bed. They're what keep you moving when motivation dries up, ensuring that excellence isn't a performance for others, but a promise to yourself. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Lena, a librarian in Minneapolis who always felt like life was passing her by. She'd set big goals. Lose 20 pounds, write a novel, travel the world. But they stayed dreams, scribbled in journals, never touched by reality. She'd start strong, then falter, blaming her busy schedule or lack of willpower. Then, during a quiet shift, she read about Stoic habits, how small, consistent acts could outweigh grand plans. She decided to try. Each morning, she'd write one paragraph, not for a book, but to honor her creativity. Each evening, she'd walk for 10 minutes, not for weight loss, but to care for her body. She started saying thank you more, not to seem polite, but to live gratitude. These weren't headline-worthy changes, but they were hers. Weeks passed and Lena felt a shift. Her desk held pages of writing. Her walks grew longer. Her heart felt lighter. Her library became a haven, not a hideout. Her habits didn't just change her days, they changed her. She wasn't dreaming anymore. She was doing. This is the Stoic truth about habits. They're not chains, they're anchors. They don't confine you, they ground you. In a culture obsessed with instant results, where apps promise six-pack abs in 6 weeks and gurus sell success in a seminar, habits are a quiet rebellion. They're your refusal to chase flash over substance, to trade depth for speed. We're surrounded by stories of overnight triumphs, but those are exceptions, not rules. Real change, the kind that lasts, comes from what you do when no one's clapping. Think of someone like Stephen King, who didn't become a literary giant by waiting for inspiration. He wrote 2,000 words a day, every day, rain or shine. That habit wasn't just discipline, it was devotion. It didn't just produce books. It produced a life of purpose, proof that excellence is built, not stumbled upon. Why are habits so powerful? Because they reshape your reflexes. Each time you choose to act, whether it's rising early, eating with care, or listening deeply, you're rewiring yourself. You're teaching your mind. This is what we do. In today's America, where distractions are a constant hum, phones pinging, ads flashing, schedules overflowing, habits are your fortress. They guard your time, your focus, your peace. They let you carve out moments for what matters, even when the world demands otherwise. And here's the beauty. Habits don't need perfect conditions. They thrive in mess, in doubt, in ordinary days. They're what let you show up, not as a hero, but as yourself, steady, present, true. How do you build them? Start with intention, not ambition. Ask, what's one act that feels like me? Not the best you, but the real you. Want to be healthier? Drink 1 glass of water each morning. Want to be wiser? Read 1 paragraph before bed. Make it so small it's undeniable, so true it's unshakable. Then do it again tomorrow. Don't chase streaks, chase commitment. When you stumble, don't dwell. The Stoics didn't mourn missteps. They took the next one. Each habit is a brick in your foundation, and with every brick, you grow stronger. By a month's end, you'll feel it. A rhythm, a clarity, a sense that you're not just surviving, you're sculpting. Your habits become your essence, not because you forced them, but because you lived them day by day until they became your truth. But habits do more than carry you, they transform you. They don't just change what you do, they change how you see yourself. They set the stage for a shift so profound it redefines your very being, turning doubt into trust, reaction into response. The identity shift from doubt to trust. As your habits take root, weaving a steady rhythm through your days, something extraordinary begins to unfold. It's not just that your life looks different. Your morning coffee brewed with care, your desk clear of clutter, your words chosen with intention. It's that you feel different. The Stoics knew that consistent action doesn't just build routines. It reshapes who you are at your core. With every step you take, every promise you keep, you start to see yourself through a new lens, not as someone tossed by life's waves, but as someone who navigates them, not as someone haunted by doubt, but as someone anchored by trust. This isn't a loud reinvention or a sudden spotlight moment. It's a quiet evolution, like dawn breaking slowly, revealing a world you always knew was there. It's the moment you realize you're no longer chasing a better you, you're living it. Imagine a painter standing before a canvas. Each brushstroke seems small, almost invisible against the vast white expanse. But over time, a picture emerges, vivid, whole, unmistakably theirs. That's what your habits do to your identity. Every time you choose to act, rising early, speaking truth, finishing what you start, you're adding color, depth, definition. You're not inventing a new self. You're uncovering the one buried beneath years of hesitation, fear, and stories you told yourself about what you couldn't be. The Stoics called this alignment, living in harmony with your nature, your reason, your truth. It's closing the gap between who you are and who you've always been capable of being, one deliberate choice at a time. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Jamal, a high school teacher in Chicago who felt trapped in a cycle of self-doubt. He loved his students but struggled with confidence. His lessons felt flat, his voice shaky, his nights spent worrying he wasn't good enough. He'd react to stress with frustration, snapping at kids or retreating into silence. Then, after a workshop on Stoicism, he decided to try something new. Each morning, he'd spend 5 minutes preparing one clear, engaging lesson idea, not for approval but for his students. Each afternoon, he'd take one deep breath before responding to a challenge, choosing calm over chaos. He started journaling one sentence each night, not to vent, but to reflect. Some days he slipped, rushed a lesson, lost his temper, but he kept returning. Months passed, and Jamal noticed a change. His classroom hummed with energy, his students leaned in, and when he spoke, his voice carried weight. He wasn't just teaching, he was leading. He didn't just feel better, he felt whole. His identity had shifted, not with applause but with action, one step at a time. This is the Stoic magic of identity. It's not declared, it's earned. You don't become strong by shouting it. You become strong by acting with courage again and again, until it's your reflex. You don't become wise by wishing for it. You become wise by seeking truth, day after day, until it's your compass. In a world that thrives on comparison, where social media showcases everyone's best life, this shift is a lifeline. We're told to be confident, to own the room, but those are masks. The Stoics didn't perform confidence. They built it. They acted consistently until their actions became their truth. Think of someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose legacy wasn't born from flash, but from decades of showing up, studying, arguing, dissenting with unwavering commitment. Her identity wasn't a gift. It was a creation, forged in quiet, relentless effort. Why does this matter? Because identity is your anchor. In today's America, where change is constant, jobs shift, relationships evolve, uncertainties loom, knowing who you are gives you ground to stand on. It's what lets you face a tough day, not with panic, but with poise. It's what lets you hear criticism, not with shame, but with curiosity. It's what lets you walk through doubt, not as a victim, but as a builder. This isn't about ego, it's about trust. Trust in your ability to show up, to choose, to endure. It's the quiet certainty that comes from proving to yourself over and over that you're not defined by your fears, you're defined by your actions. How do you spark this shift? Build on your habits, but see them as more than tasks. See them as proof. When you wake up early, don't just note the time. Feel the pride of owning your day. When you speak truth, don't just hear the words. Sense the strength they carry. Reflect, not to judge, but to witness. This is who I'm becoming. When doubt creeps in, don't fight it, act through it. The Stoics didn't banish fear. They moved past it. Each action is a vote for the person you are, rewriting the story you've carried too long. You're not someone who fails. You're someone who rises. You're not stuck. You're someone who builds. Here's what's beautiful. This shift compounds. Each act of trust strengthens the next, creating a cycle of growth. You start to carry yourself differently, not with arrogance, but with peace. You respond, not react. You believe not because you're told to, but because you've shown yourself you can. This is the Stoic way. To become not by wishing but by doing, until the person you see in the mirror isn't a stranger, but a friend. And that transformation is just the beginning of what's possible when you live with unwavering commitment. But this journey doesn't stop with who you become. It ripples outward, touching others, shaping the world around you. What happens when your identity becomes a beacon, when your presence inspires trust and respect, not because you demand it, but because you've earned it? That's where we're headed next. Influence through consistency, inspiring without effort. You've sparked a transformation with one deliberate day, given it weight through actions that speak louder than promises, anchored it with discipline, built momentum through repetition, aligned it with values, woven it into habits, and reshaped your very identity. But this journey doesn't end with you. It ripples outward, touching the world in ways you might not expect. The Stoics understood that true influence isn't loud or forced. It's not about shouting your worth or chasing applause. It's the natural, magnetic pull of a life lived with consistency and integrity. When you show up, day after day, as someone who keeps their word, who acts with purpose, who stays true even when no one's watching, you become more than a person. You become a beacon. You inspire others, not because you're trying to, but because your presence carries a truth that's impossible to ignore. Think of a lighthouse standing firm against crashing waves. It doesn't call out to ships or beg for their attention. It simply shines, steady and sure, guiding them through the dark. That's what consistency does. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room or the flashiest star in the sky. It's about being the one who's there, reliable, grounded, when others falter. The Stoics didn't seek followers. They sought virtue. Yet their lives, Marcus Aurelius facing empire with calm, Seneca enduring exile with resolve, drew people in. Why? Because consistency is rare. In a world of fleeting trends and broken promises, someone who stays true to their path stands out like a flame in the fog. Their actions don't just speak. They resonate, quietly shifting the air around them. Let's ground this in a story. Meet Aisha, a barista in San Francisco who never saw herself as a leader. She worked long shifts, juggled school, and dreamed of opening her own cafe. But life felt ordinary. Grind, repeat, sleep. Then, after a tough day, she decided to change one thing. She'd show up fully, every day, no matter what. She greeted each customer with a genuine smile, not for tips, but because kindness was her choice. She kept her station spotless, not for praise, but because care was her standard. She listened to her co-workers' frustrations, not to fix them, but to be present. At first, she didn't notice a difference, same coffee, same rush. But over weeks, something shifted. Customers lingered, sharing stories. Her co-workers leaned on her, trusting her calm. Her manager noticed her steadiness, offering her a promotion. Aisha hadn't sought influence. She'd lived it. Her consistency wasn't loud, but it was felt, like a warm current in a cold room. This is the Stoic secret of influence. It's not taken, it's earned. It's not about what you say, it's about what you do, again and again, until your presence becomes a force. In today's America, where everyone's vying for attention, posting highlights, chasing likes, branding themselves, influence built on integrity feels like a revolution. We're surrounded by noise, but what cuts through isn't volume, it's authenticity. Think of someone like Mr. Rogers, whose quiet kindness changed millions of lives. He didn't demand respect. He embodied it, showing up with the same gentle presence every day. His influence wasn't in grand speeches, but in consistent, heartfelt acts. You don't need a platform to do that. You just need to live your truth, relentlessly, and others will feel it. Why does consistency inspire? Because it's proof. Proof that change is possible, that strength can endure, that values aren't just words. When you keep showing up, finishing what you start, staying calm when others panic, choosing integrity over ease, you become a mirror. You show others what they're capable of, not by preaching, but by being. People don't follow you because you're perfect. They follow you because you're real. They see you rise after a long day. Keep your word when it's hard. Stay kind when it's tempting to snap. That's what pulls them in, not your spotlight, but your steadiness. It's what makes a colleague ask for your advice, a friend lean on your strength, a stranger remember your name. Your consistency becomes their permission to try, to grow, to stay true. How do you cultivate this? Keep it simple, but keep it deep. Build on your habits, those small acts of discipline and values. Notice their weight not just in what they do, but in how they're seen. When you wake up early, you're not just starting your day, you're showing reliability. When you speak truth, you're not just being honest, you're building trust. Don't aim to impress, aim to align. Let your actions be your voice, clear and unwavering. When others notice, don't chase their praise, let it come. The Stoics didn't seek admiration. They sought virtue, and admiration followed. Each consistent act is a stone in your legacy, and with every stone, your influence grows, not forced, but felt, like gravity pulling others toward your light. This kind of influence is powerful because it's effortless, not in the sense of being easy, but in being natural. It flows from who you are, not what you project. Yet even this steady path isn't without its stumbles. What happens when you falter? When the rhythm breaks? When the world tempts you to wait for perfection? That's where the Stoic wisdom shines brightest, showing you how to rise, not despite your falls, but because of them. Progress, not perfection, embracing the journey. Your consistent actions have begun to ripple, shaping not just your life but the lives of those around you. You're no longer just moving forward, you're leading quietly by example. But let's be real. This path isn't a straight line. It's not a polished road with clear signs and smooth pavement. It's a trail through the wild, rocky, winding, sometimes shrouded in mist. The Stoics knew this better than anyone. Progress isn't perfect, and it doesn't need to be. Every stumble, every moment of doubt, every day you feel like you've fallen short is not a failure. It's a lesson. It's a chance to learn, to grow, to return to your path with more clarity than before. The secret to transformation isn't avoiding missteps. It's refusing to stay down. It's choosing to move forward, not because you're flawless, but because you're committed to becoming. Picture a climber scaling a mountain. She doesn't glide to the summit in one graceful bound. She steps, slips, grabs hold, steps again. Each slip isn't a defeat. It's a map, teaching her where the rock is loose, where to place her foot next. That's what progress looks like. It's not a highlight reel of perfect moments. It's a montage of effort, grit, and resilience. The Stoics didn't chase perfection. They chased growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, not to boast, but to wrestle with his temper, his doubts, his humanity. He fell daily yet rose daily because he knew the path wasn't about being untouchable. It was about being unbreakable. Progress to him was motion, not a finish line. Let's make this tangible with a story. Meet Ethan, a carpenter in Nashville who dreamed of starting his own furniture business. He'd sketch designs late at night, full of passion, but when it came to building, he froze. Every piece had to be perfect. Flawless wood, precise cuts, or he'd scrap it, convinced he wasn't ready. Months passed, no progress, just piles of discarded plans. Then, after reading about Stoicism, he decided to shift. He'd build one piece a week, imperfect as it might be, and learn from it. His first table wobbled, uneven legs, rough finish. Instead of tossing it, he studied it, adjusted, tried again. The next was better, then better still. Some days he wanted to quit. Others he doubted his skill. But he kept going, not for perfection, but for growth. A year later, Ethan's workshop hummed with orders, not because his work was flawless, but because it was his born of effort, refined by mistakes. He wasn't perfect, he was persistent, and that was enough. This is the Stoic wisdom. Progress is messy, and that's okay. In a culture that glorifies perfection, airbrushed influencers, curated feeds, fail-proof plans, we're taught to hide our stumbles. But hiding them robs you of their power. Every fall is a teacher, showing you where you're weak, where you're strong, where you need to pause. The Stoics didn't shame their flaws. They used them. Seneca wrote of his struggles, not to wallow, but to understand. Epictetus taught that obstacles are opportunities, not endings. They knew that waiting for perfection is just another excuse to stand still. Progress doesn't need you to be spotless. It needs you to be stubborn, to rise one more time than you fall. Why does this matter? Because life doesn't wait for you to be ready. In today's world, where jobs shift, plans unravel, and surprises lurk, waiting for perfection keeps you stuck. Think of someone like Lin-Manuel Miranda, whose Hamilton wasn't born perfect. It was years of drafts, doubts, revisions, stumbles turned into steps. His genius wasn't flawlessness. It was persistence, showing up when the words didn't flow, trusting the process over the product. You don't need to be perfect to start, to build, to inspire. You just need to move through the doubt, through the mess, through the fear that you're not enough. Each step proves you are. How do you embrace this? Build on your habits, but don't judge them by their polish. See each act as progress, not a test. If you miss a morning routine, don't spiral. Wake up tomorrow and try again. If you snap in a moment of stress, don't dwell. Breathe, reflect, respond next time. Celebrate the small wins. The day you showed up tired but did it anyway, the moment you chose truth over ease. The Stoics didn't track perfection. They tracked effort. Each stumble is a stone on your path. Step on it. Don't trip. Each return is a victory, proving you're not defined by your falls, but by your rise. Here's what's beautiful. Progress builds trust, not just in your actions, but in yourself. Each time you get back up, you learn you're stronger than you thought. You start to carry that strength not as a burden, but as a gift. You become someone who doesn't fear mistakes, because mistakes don't break you, they shape you. This is the Stoic way, to move not toward perfection, but toward growth, with a heart full of grit and a soul full of grace. And that movement, it's setting the stage for something even greater, a life where every choice, every step, becomes a testament to what's possible. But this journey isn't just about your path. It's about the legacy you leave. What happens when you take these lessons, these imperfect steps, and let them guide you toward a rule that ties it all together? That's where we're headed next. Stoicism in action, living with clarity, courage, and resolve. You've walked a path that began with a single intentional day, a spark that lit the way. You've fueled it with actions that outshine empty promises, grounded it with discipline, built momentum through relentless repetition, aligned it with values, woven it into habits, reshaped your identity, inspired others through consistency, and embraced progress over perfection. Now, as you stand at this crossroads, the Stoic path reveals its deepest truth. Living Stoic isn't about thinking grand thoughts or chasing fleeting praise. It's about acting every single day with clarity, courage, and resolve. It's a philosophy not of words, but of motion, not of recognition, but of reality. It's a call to live so fully in each moment that your life becomes a testament to what's possible when you choose to move, not wait, to build, not wish, to be, not merely seem. Imagine a warrior stepping onto a battlefield, not with fanfare, but with focus. The clash of swords, the chaos of shouts, the weight of uncertainty swirl around them, yet they stand unshaken. Their strength isn't in their armor or their blade, but in their mind, clear, steady, trained to act, not react. That's Stoicism in action. It's not about escaping life's storms. It's about facing them with a heart full of purpose and a will that bends for nothing. The Stoics didn't promise an easy life. They promised a meaningful one. Marcus Aurelius rose each morning, not to conquer Rome, but to conquer himself, reminding himself to meet interference with patience, ingratitude with kindness, adversity with resolve. Seneca faced betrayal and exile, not with bitterness, but with wisdom, writing truths that still guide us. Epictetus, born a slave, didn't curse his chains. He forged freedom in his mind, teaching that what we control is enough. Their lives weren't lectures, they were proof. Proof that Stoicism isn't a theory to study, but a practice to live. Let's make this vivid with a story. Meet Grace, a nurse practitioner in Boston who felt buried under the weight of her work. Long hours, emotional tolls, and a constant sense of not enough left her drained. Snapping at her family, numbing out with wine and TV. She'd always admired stories of resilience, but they felt distant heroes, not her. Then, during a late shift, she overheard a colleague mention Stoicism, living by choice, not chance. Intrigued, Grace decided to try it, starting small. Each morning, she'd pause for 1 minute to set an intention, not to fix her day, but to face it with clarity. At work, she'd focus on one patient at a time, giving them her full presence, not for thanks, but because care was her truth. At home, she'd listen to her kids without rushing, not for perfection, but for connection. Some days she faltered, lost her temper, skipped her pause, but she didn't dwell. She returned, acting with courage, choosing resolve. Months later, Grace was different. Not because her life was easier, but because she was stronger. Her patients trusted her calm, her family felt her warmth, and she carried a quiet pride. Not loud, but deep. She wasn't just surviving. She was living, stoic to her core. This is the heart of Stoicism in action. It's not about what you say, but what you do day in, day out with no need for external applause. In today's America, where noise is constant, scrolling feeds, chasing trends, craving validation, this feels like a rebellion. We're told to shout our worth, to brand ourselves, to measure our value in likes and followers. But Stoicism flips the script. It says your worth isn't in what others see. It's in what you choose when no one's watching. It's rising early to claim your day, not for Instagram, but for you. It's speaking truth, not for clout, but for integrity. It's facing a tough moment, not with panic, but with poise, because you've trained your mind to stay clear. This isn't about being untouchable. It's about being unbreakable, acting with such conviction that your life becomes its own reward. Why does this resonate so deeply? Because we're hungry for substance in a world of surface. We're surrounded by promises, quick fixes, instant success, endless distractions, but they leave us empty. Stoicism offers something real, a way to live that doesn't depend on what's outside you. It's not about waiting for life to align. It's about aligning yourself every day with what matters. Think of someone like John Lewis, whose civil rights work wasn't driven by fame, but by daily acts of courage. Marching, speaking, enduring, not for applause, but for justice. His stoic-like resolve didn't need headlines, it changed history. You don't need to be a hero to live this way. You just need to act, clearly, bravely, consistently, until your choices shape a life that speaks for itself. How do you embody this? Build on everything you've learned. Take your habits, your values, your identity, and let them guide your actions, not once, but always. Start each day with one clear choice. How will I live today? Maybe it's a moment of silence to center yourself, a kind word to a stranger, a task finished with care. Make it small, but make it true. When challenges come, and they will, don't flinch. Pause, breathe, choose. The Stoics didn't avoid hardship. They met it, acting with wisdom, not whim. Don't seek praise, it's a trap. Seek clarity, it's your compass. Each act is a step, not toward a distant goal, but toward a life that's yours, whole, grounded, alive. Here's what's beautiful. Stoicism in action doesn't just change you. It redefines what's possible. Each day you live this way, you prove that strength isn't loud, that courage isn't showy, that meaning isn't found in applause but in motion. You become a living example, not of perfection, but of purpose. A light that shines not to dazzle, but to guide, quietly, relentlessly, through every storm. This journey began with a single day, a choice to act, to step into your power with intention. From there, you learn to let actions speak louder than words, to anchor yourself with discipline, to build momentum through repetition, to live your values, to weave habits, to reshape your identity, to inspire through consistency, to embrace imperfect progress, and to embody Stoicism through daily courage. Each step wasn't just a lesson. It was a brick, laid with care, building a life of clarity, strength, and purpose. The Stoics didn't promise a perfect life. They promised a true one, forged in the fires of choice, tempered by resolve. You've seen how one day can spark a transformation, how one week can set a rhythm, how 1 month can shift your core. Now, the path is yours to walk. Not someday, but today, with every breath you take. Applying Stoicism to modern life. In our fast-paced, distraction-filled world, Stoicism is a lifeline. Start small. Choose one act each day that aligns with your truth. Whether it's a moment of mindfulness, a kind gesture, or a task done with focus. When stress hits, pause and ask, what can I control? Let go of the rest. Build habits that ground you. Write one thought, move your body, say no to chaos. Don't chase likes or applause, chase clarity. The kind that comes from knowing you've lived well. In a society that measures worth by noise, be the quiet strength that endures. Your life, your choices, is your legacy. If this journey resonates with you, join us at ZenLight 8 on YouTube, where we explore how to live with purpose and peace in today's world. Subscribe, share your thoughts, and let's keep growing together. In the comments, share one word that captures your takeaway from this path. For me, it's clarity, because that's what Stoicism brings. A lens to see, a will to act, a life to live. What's your word?